Hello and welcome back to Everybody Loves Raiken, our 5th edition live play podcast that meets every Tuesday night. Last week was somewhat eventful, actually, as the party successfully teleported by use of Cyrus' spell and arrived safely on Sol Syracuse, the western large island that is home to what is known widely as the Arcane University, and locally as the Marble City. Here, the party was stopped by a little bit of procedure, as they needed to register their arrival after requesting special dispensation to use the teleportation hub in the first place. And thereupon, the register informed them that they were going to stall the party for a dean, which I recognized after listening back to the recording I said was the dean of the School of Conjuration. I did mean to say the dean of the School of Abjuration at the time. When she showed up, Dean Amara did properly introduce herself as the dean of the School of Abjuration, but I realized upon listening to the recording that I'd caused a little bit of confusion with that, so sorry to my players and any listeners. Amara...
I feel robbed.
Huh? You feel what?
Robbed,
I'm sorry.
Betrayed.
Backstabbed. It's entirely fair, I'm sorry.
How could it make such a mistake?
It'll never happen again. I mean, I can't actually promise that. It'll probably happen again. But it will never be on purpose. So, Dean Amara did show up, introduced herself to the party, and Laromendis was getting an earful about how, his name was popping up about the school some 60 years after he departed from its walls, which he openly seemed troubled by. The party was given a very short, small tour, a little introduction to the campus by the dean, and then quickly shown to a place where they could rest. In the meantime, Amara did pull Laromendis away to speak to him about events needing, in her words, to corroborate the stories that the university had been hearing through the Mages Guild. They did catch up in such a way, and Amara parted with Laromendis, telling him that she would speak with the weather forecasters to make sure that they could get to the party, that is to say, could get to the Feywild this evening. In the meantime, the rest of the party had a bath and prepared to rest. Some of them had some rather interesting interactions with students as they had arrived right around 7 in the morning local time, and several people were at the baths, going through their morning rituals. I know that Leah met with a young tiefling woman who said that she had come to the university from the city of Tuca, and recalled, when Leah described it, the party's involvement in the dragon attack, which inspired her to come and study magic. That was, I, as a third party, imagine a tough conversation for Leah. The tiefling seemed concerned that the party was going to cause more trouble with dragons. And I know that Tatsuya ran into a young human man who was really having difficulty wrapping his head around the idea that this Dragonborn was at the university, but not for studying. Did go into the fact that he, too, was here with the crush of new students to learn magic and hopefully avenge their homes, families, loved ones that were lost to this recent rise of dragons. and in his conversation mentioned that he had been from a small village on an island central to the inner sea, which had been attacked by Elsementh, the blue dragon. After that, we jumped to Cyrus, who got some research done on the last hours before exhaustion took him in the library, who was able to call up some information about the Feywild. And I think that's all the important points. So the party has now gotten a full, long rest. It's about 3 in the afternoon, so if you didn't mark on your sheet, get your long rest, got all your health, your spell slots back. If you had levels of exhaustion, reduce whatever that number is by 1 to a minimum of 0. You're having lunch, breakfast, brunch, 3 o'clock afternoon breakfast. And it is being provided by magic chafing dishes that just seem to fill with food in a similar manner to the bento box that the party has been using to sustain itself. Only more eclectic. So, let's begin there. You're all out here enjoying your late breakfast and catching up on things that need to be accomplished. Laromendis had last informed you that you would be able to transfer to the Feywild this evening. Alright. So then, Lara, why don't you start us off?
So I know that Laromendis had also just sent to Raiken and had conveyed the sending to the rest of the party. I think the gist of it had been he had been in the middle of a fight. He won, and now was getting ready to meet people, which was more concerning than him being in a fight.
Indeed.
I know that that had prompted some comment from Cyrus about his research that he had done, but I don't remember what the comment was.
Just some along the lines of don't trust Faye if you can avoid it.
Still a little quiet, Derek.
Just something along the lines of don't trust Faye if you can avoid it.
That is reasonable advice. Did anyone else have other comments, questions, anything like that before we all have our time to spend here until this evening when we can make our way into the Feywild?
Yes. Where would I go to request one of those tuning forks?
We should probably go together to the School of Conjuration. I think that if you went alone, there would be questions that are going to be difficult.
I understand that. I don't mind following you. You have more understanding of this place, and I probably get lost.
Do we have the money to be able to see if we can trade for them?
I have some spare coins, if funds are what we lack.
I have 100 platinum.
That's 100 plats should be enough. Really.
Yeah, so you think it's gonna cost more than 100 platinum?
I do think that comes in bar form.
That would be 2 bars of platinum.
So I think I have 2 bars of platinum. And then 3 extra. So,
2 bars and 3 coins.
But I think that's enough.
That better be enough.
Oh my gosh. I just remember the last time someone whipped out a bar of platinum. It was Vendar paying to get his mail in Tuca. to have mail sent
You
in
fucking
Tuca.
platinum.
Yeah. Yeah, they
just like shaving it onto a scale or something.
No, they took the entire bar.
Yeah, I just gave him the whole fucking bar. It was important that mail get through.
Yeah, and they didn't want to send mail for him because of who he was.
Yeah, fair enough.
Unfair.
They
Yeah,
deserve
but
that.
I have actually had similar things happen in real life, though. People playing insane large spells for small things. It's
When
always
you're
annoying because you
rich.
might not have enough exchange to actually fix that.
Yeah. I
What
mean, sometimes
are
you've just
the-
gone somewhere where you got a big bill, you know? He just came from the money changer. Canvassed, I remembered.
It's a good word.
Great
Really
word.
like it. What tuning forks did we want to have? Just try and find one from the material plane, which should hopefully be trivial, and possibly one for the Feywild.
Yeah, those two I feel like are smart to have.
I just want to jump in and remind you, because I thought it was a super cool idea, was that, Leah, you had pulled out a tuning fork from Baranor. Jebel had told you could just get it retuned into the right key, and then it would be not only a good magical focus for the spell, but also sentimental.
I thought the issue was it wasn't made out of the right thing.
I mean,
Yeah, it's also
part of the thing is the cost, but like
Yeah.
we can determine if it is, sufficiently valuable for the spell. At the School of Conjuration, we can ask them if there
You
is
can probably
the
get like
time and resources.
platinum plated or something, you know.
I'm gonna put this platinum in here. Can you put that in this bucket of water as well with some other stuff in it, and just like lightning bolt it?
like inscribe the autograph of a celebrity and a few jewels on it.
But yeah, that is a good reminder. So when we go there, we can ask if there's some way we can modify this one, if it would work as focus for the spell, and if they would be able to trade for one for the Feywild.
The value needs to be 250 gold.
25 platinum.
I'd imagine trying to get one for one of the planes of hell would be, would at least raise a few eyebrows.
Probably, depending on who we go and ask, and if the dean was accurate in her description of stories about myself that had come about, I think that there might be some who would not be surprised by that request. But we can certainly ask.
I feel like that one would probably cost more.
It would likely be rarer than either the material plane or the Feywild.
I would assume the material plane and Feywild would be fairly easy to combine in this place.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but not so many people trying to go to hell.
Oh, well.
Rightfully so.
I guess not many try, but several do.
So that seems to be what Leah and myself are intending to do, at least first. Is there anything I can help anyone else here with, or directions?
I would like to
perhaps
ask something of you. Ash has that thing where he can talk to people for like 10 minutes or whatever. Would it be okay?
I believe, out of character, I believe that's recharged now, right?
No.
No? Okay.
It's out until tomorrow morning, and you just
Okay.
drop back 5 hours.
Right.
Fuck.
Unfortunately, we have not seen a dawn in quite some time.
But you can address him, up until he makes a request to use it right now. Like him.
It's been a while since I've spoken to Lynn, and I was hoping to talk to her and, let her know I'm alright after going into the Underdark.
That seems reasonable. It's going to be a little bit of time before Ash can do that again. And given her line of work, it would be probably be better to send to her first anyway to make sure that we would not be disturbing things.
Yeah, sure, probably.
Would you like me to send now, or should we wait until Ash could make a call and send
Is that
then?
someone you can send to?
He had said Lynn, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I misheard the name.
Yeah, I assume that
yeah,
I
I
can
think
send
we
to
should-
Lynn.
We should probably wait until you can do or Ash can do the thing. But just when possible.
I will try and remember to bring it up when we are in a good position and Ash is capable of doing so.
What determines when Ash is capable of doing so?
The next dawn.
Okay. So I'll try to remember next time
We
trade
will we will likely be in the Feywild at that point if everything goes according to plan, and it is possible that that might impact the call in some way. So that will be interesting to find out. But I would like to warn you ahead of time.
Alright, can you send us somebody on a different plane?
Yes, but it is
Okay.
possible for there to be some interference.
Alright, well, it is what it is.
Speaking of which, are there any odd effects of the Feywild of which you could enlighten us? As from my understanding, you've been there.
Yes, I grew up there. Define odd effects.
I don't know. Does time flow differently? I honestly, I have no idea. Anything like any kind of general rules of the place that aren't typical of the material plane.
If you are in one of the city-states, those tend to be fairly well grounded in what we would think of as reality. And so, in those regions, things should be fairly normal. Unfortunately, I think that we will be going into areas between the city-states, as most of the Fae make their domains in that area, and things are I mean, it'll be easier to see than to hear about.
All right.
The weather is erratic, depending on the how the Fae in that area align themselves. Time is different traveling through there. Sometimes, depending on the Fae's mood, and sometimes they don't particularly think about it and weirder things happen.
Are you saying we might go in there and time would pass quicker?
It is possible that there are going to be patches of the Feywild that we pass through that time will move quicker, yes. It is also possible their time will move slower in other areas.
Swear to God,
At least
if this
time-
is wedding because we jump a week in the fucking Feywild, they're gonna kill you.
At least time relative to what we are thinking about it on the material plane. Again, this isn't a concern if we are in the city-states, though those are anchored well, which is why they have been used as such.
Just wait till you see the parts of the Feywild where time passes upside down.
Oh, I hope we don't do that.
I don't know why, but I got stuck on the whole Ash recharges at dawn, and we're going to this odd place. What if there's never a dawn? No matter how much time passes, you'll never be able to send a message.
We're not gonna be in there forever.
We will hopefully find.
We'll jump
a
straight
time
from there to
leave.
hell.
No one would ever admit that Ione didn't think that far ahead. However,
fiddly bits, you know.
Sorry, it was just a random thought I had while I was eating. I have nothing that I really can think of at the moment I need to do in the city right now, Laromendis, so I'm probably gonna just chill. I'm probably just gonna chill in my room for a while and ponder some stuff.
One other question. Target identification. From what we saw of the Fae, whose name I cannot remember.
Darbo?
Yeah, that's the one. They don't. I mean, they're not gonna look like creatures that are not gonna, from my share, not gonna look like what we might consider normal or common. Is there any
I know how it looks like.
rule of is there any guide for being able to tell what might try and kill you and what might not, or just
I mean, I feel like a safe rule of thumb is to assume that if you are not in one of the city-states, anything is liable to kill you, and should be treated with caution at the very least.
caution but not aggression.
We never ran into many other people that were worth dealing with when we would be traveling between them.
All right. Well, I think that settles for my questions.
Actually, now that I think about it, how is the library's historical section here?
Extensive. Well, which is there a particular area of history? More things here are going to gear towards caring more about Elvish and other such things. But
if we want to, we want to. Oh, there's a word I want to use that I forgot what it was. If we want to even think about possibly going after Tiamat, I'm wondering about world catastrophes and things that might be hinting around them that have happened in the past to see if there might be any kind of gleam or hint that a god was related to just weigh my decision on if this is the course of action I feel is.
I do think arming yourself with more knowledge to come to a reasonable decision on that is a good idea. I would begin looking in. I describe a portion of the library for that kind of material. There are also librarians that you could talk with to try and find other areas, but I would begin my search there.
And I believe Cyrus went earlier that you would know Laromendis. They're perfectly fine with us going in the library and doing research. Being outsiders.
To the voice in the sky. I think just by virtue of them being here, they should be fine to be reading things in the library. I think if they were trying to take things out, it might be different. And some of the information that Yukikaze is asking for might be restricted in some sense.
This is a place of Ione. Knowledge is freely available to those who come here.
And seek it. Okay.
No restrictions.
Restrictions on knowledge are anathema.
So to Yukikaze, you should be able to have access to anything that you need, so long as it is there.
Okay.
I was wondering, And I assume this place has an alchemy section.
Those buildings are kept fairly distant from some of the other buildings, but yes.
Really? Well, where are they? Can I go? Go look?
The School of Conjuration is on the way, so we can go with you part of the way, and I can point you out where you need to go past that.
All right.
So if you guys want to find me later, I'll be in the library. Just a heads up after we're done here.
I have an idea.
Why do I get the feeling I'm not gonna like this idea?
Probably because you're not a fan of goo.
It's my favorite substance.
Oh my gosh.
Have you ever been
Cyrus,
a goo? Because I can
Tatsuya,
make you one.
Is there any guidance
Been a
I
while.
can give either of you?
I'm itching for it.
Any introductions you wish made? Anything that I can help with?
I just want to be done with this as quickly as possible so we can travel and find my brother. So I'll do whatever I need to make that go a little faster.
To the best of my knowledge, the most controllable way to make time appear to go faster is to sleep.
I'm not tired anymore.
I believe
wanna
that we
be?
will be leaving from I mean, it would probably be best for us to get together before going. So, I mean, meeting up here seems reasonable to me before we need to leave. So I suppose you could just wait here. Is there something that would interest you at the university for passing the time? There isn't much in the way of martial studies. But I think that there are a few clubs that dabble.
Maybe I'll just go with you.
All right. Cyrus?
Well, naturally, I have probably several more questions than you have time for, so I will attempt to keep this brief.
I'll be right back.
To make sure that we have the appropriate funds for any components we might need. Let me lend you some platinum in case the last one is particularly expensive. And with that, I'll hand you 40 platinum.
Okay. I will add that to my sheet. What is it that you are requesting?
I'm not requesting anything. It's just like to make sure that we can get the tuning forks.
Okay. Is there
Sure.
any other reagents outside that interest you?
I mean, if there's some that you guys can make use of, feel free to spend what I gave you. None of my spells have, well, expensive components.
Is there any direction I can point you in to assist with your remaining time here at the university?
Yes, that is the other thing. I don't know how much of this you had heard, but given it's you, I expect most of it. When Narvar was around, he had mentioned something called the Spiral Tower, which we found in the Feywild. Is there by chance? Do you know of any information on it that I can find here?
To the voice in the sky, I think that I was not familiar with the Spiral Tower.
You
Right?
yourself had never been. That is correct. I'm trying to remember if you'd... Being that you are interested in folklore, I feel like you
I
are the kind of
probably
person
know
who would have
some kind of
heard
stories
of
about
it, but I don't know if you had any verifying evidence of its existence.
Okay.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
If there is anything to be found, it would be in the library. I don't remember finding anything particularly concrete about the Spiral Tower during my time here, although more of my research was spent in things on the material plane as opposed to the Feywild.
Makes sense.
Actually, an old professor of mine might be able to give you more guidance on that than I could, and he would probably be easier to find than the information in the library.
Would he be still alive?
Excuse me.
It's an excellent question. We should let's find out if Jerry is still around. Are there any students? There are students around here, right?
Yes, it is 3 p.m. On a day of classes, and there are plenty of people even in this very area of the building eating alongside you.
Excellent. So I'm going to go and approach one of them.
And just so you know, Jebel, you are over here. You are privy to all of the conversation, and you may jump in at any moment.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
Huh?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh. There is a Furbolg dressed in the robes of the School of Conjuration. We're here. Who else have I stuck over here? Looks like probably a shifter. Kinda. They call it a fen folk in this program. It's the same one that Derek used as a shifter, though. In the robes of the School of... Boy, I almost said mysticism. Divination. We'll go with those for now.
Okay, so the purple one is the closer one, so I think I will go over to them.
Okay.
Excuse me.
He's large creature with a piercing nose. Kind of looks up from his plate of food at you. Kind of takes you in. Says, I'm pretty sure I don't have class with you, Professor. If I do, I definitely did my assignments.
Laromendis chuckles. No, you're safe on that count.
You see him,
I was wondering...
visibly relieved.
I was wondering, do you happen to know Professor Jerry?
He blinks at you a few times, like, is this a hazing, sir?
Well, I wanted to... how would this be hazing? Has he done something recently? I have been away from the university for a bit of time. I wanted to make sure that my friend was still alive, given his age.
So he's real.
He was a few decades ago.
Look, I'm kind of new here myself, and all I know is that every now and then some people will talk about this really old professor for some course of study no one would ever think of taking. So,
Laromendis
obviously
looks a little dejected at that.
so obviously there's no one, no classes to look at for that. And honestly, it wasn't even until recently that a name had been put to this ghost. But I think that some of the other some of the other students had said his name was Jerry. So when I ask, you understand that I have never seen this man, and as far as I know, he's a urban legend.
I understand. I will say, should he still be kicking, his classes, although infrequent and very difficult to pin down, honestly, I think he runs from them, are quite interesting.
He just sort of blinks at you as you say this. Like, that's, tenure's a really sweet deal, huh?
It truly is. Thank you. I think I doubt that he would have wanted to change offices, so I'll try finding him in his old one.
Okay.
Thank you again, and good luck with your studies.
Look, if you do find him and you happen back or spot me out on the quad or anything, just, let me know. I'm just curious.
Very well. Have a good meal.
Thanks, Professor.
Did Leah come over here to join in the conversation, to talk with him, to get Laromendis? Because Laromendis is ready to leave.
No, she just follows Laromendis.
Okay. So, it's possible that he's still going to be found in his old office. I guess stories about him might have ballooned in my absence. But I know that he was quite comfortable in his offices. So I suppose we can go and check there and then make our way to the School of Conjuration. And I can give directions to the alchemy department. Jebel, did you have any desires here that I could guide you towards? Any introductions that you would need me to make? Anything of the sort? I guess I was assuming that like Jebel was Jebel actually like 4 tables away from us this entire time, or
I think I just shoved him over there last session because
Okay, cool.
I needed to move him along with. That is a question for Thomas. Where there is food going on, there is a lot of talking in your party going on. Where would Jebel have situated himself while all this talking was going on?
I imagine he would be with the party.
Okay. Sticky over here.
So, did Jebel have any direction he wanted Laromendis to give him for where he might find a thing, who he might talk to get some information, interesting things he might do here?
Topic of is it reagents for spellcasting come up?
Yes. So Laromendis and Leah, and I guess Tatsuya, are going to the School of Conjuration to see about acquiring some tuning forks for plane shift. And so there had been a bit of a discussion around reagents. Cyrus had given Laromendis a bit more money to be able to help with that, should it be necessary.
Let's see. $100 gold is 10 platinum is 100 gold.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to get some of the diamond dust so I can cast Greater Restoration again.
We should be able to find that.
Yeah.
to the voice in the sky, would there be like a storehouse kind of location that one would go to for the acquisition of reagents, or is that going to be fairly spread out amongst the colleges?
It's treated more like an armory.
Yeah, that was basically, I was thinking of a pharmacy.
Yeah, I think a pharmacy. Pharmacy is the second place my mind went to, but I
didn't
also
wanna call
I
it
then
pharmacy 'cause
realized
that felt weird,
I
but yeah,
went
like,
back to
basically-
armory because these things are weapons.
Yeah, and also extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which probably means it would be easier for us to acquire if either I wrote him out some like I gave permission for this kind of thing, or I did it myself, or is it okay for me to just send him and his money to get what he needs?
I think.
Or should it go through the dean?
You know, as a person who was a professor here, that there is a procedure that you can follow that will allow a person to remotely acquire things with your permission.
Okay.
And you know that you can tap into that procedure just as easily as you did before you left because of the robes you're wearing.
Cool. That was going to be my follow-up question.
Yes. You know
Do
it's
I have
directly
permission to do
tied
this?
to your raiment.
Cool. Yeah, if you can tell me what you wish to acquire and what amounts, I can grant you the proper permissions that you can go and do that. Assuming we have the funds for it.
I need diamond dust for greater restoration, which may or may not come in handy.
I don't think it's a terrible idea to be able to cast that. Do you know how much of it you want?
I don't know. 2 or 3 castings to be safe.
I suppose let's try for how much is it for one casting?
100 gold pieces worth of diamond dust.
Okay, so let's try for 3, just to be on the safer side. We should have the funds. I will give you the money that Cyrus gave me. So that was 40 plat. And put in the requisition orders.
Okay. You may perform the task, which will allow him to go and retrieve these things. Which is done remotely.
Yeah.
Via your clothing.
Very convenient.
Very convenient. It's really
And
great
very
to be a
comfortable.
professor. It's really great to be a professor here.
Was there anything else that you wanted to see, wanted to find, wanted to do before this evening?
We use more potions? Would they be handy?
I don't see why they would hurt. For that, you would probably want to go and go with Vendar to the alchemy labs and see what can be found there. Mostly for volatility's sake, they're handled separately than other reagents.
Guess I'll be doing that 2 also.
All right. Would you like to come with us so you can go with Vendar, and then at any point from there you can find your way to pick up the diamond dust?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Okay, so I think out of character that covers everyone. Yukikaze is going to the library to look into cataclysmic events in the distant past. Cyrus is coming with me for an introduction to Jerry, should he be where I hope he is, to have discussions about the Spiral Tower with him. Vendar and Jebel are coming with us because the School of Conjuration is on the way to the Alchemy Labs. We can point them out. Leah and Tatsuya are coming with me to the School of Conjuration so that we can try and acquire a tuning fork for the Feywild and see about modifying Leah's existing tuning fork to work for the material plane.
Okay.
Does that jive with everyone? I don't think I'm missing anyone. Am I?
I missed who Tatsuya was grumping along with.
I think Tatsuya had said that he was going to come with Leah and me, just
Okay.
because he didn't have any strong desires in any other direction. But if he feels differently, Laromendis is happy to point him to wherever he wants to go.
No, Tatsuya wanted to go with you guys.
Cool.
Okay, so you are going to finish your discussion, finish your food. You place the plates on what is effectively a magical conveyor that will take them to be washed. And you head out of this building, down back on the marble streets of the city. It is, of course, bright mid-afternoon, and the road is crowded with students all going to their respective places, whether they're going to class, heading back to the dormitory, heading to meet with friends. You can hear them all chattering around you, discussing the things that matter to these youths, people your age and slightly younger, as they are studying magic in this far-off place. And almost as soon as you enter this crush of people and begin heading down these streets to your respective destinations, as you said, Laromendis, you will be dropping people at their destinations before continuing on to the next, and finally to your own. You are going to hear a sound that seems to emanate from these golden rings on the walls, the same places that produce the light that has either dimmed or is less noticeable in the day, or is out entirely. It's not entirely clear what is up with the light, if it's always there or not. But these same golden rings seem to be producing a tone. You hear this, like, bing, 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 like an announcement begins, and you hear a feminine voice speaking in Elvish. She reads a message, and then you hear the message repeated in Draconic, and then you hear the voice repeat it in Common. And in Common, you hear the message, "This is a reminder to all students, especially new students, that there is a planned rainstorm for this evening at dusk. Please dress appropriately, and, if you do not wish to accidentally transfer to the Feywild, avoid the amphitheater court this evening at dusk." And then the message loops one more time, and things go back to business as usual.
I look at Laromendis immediately and question, A planned rainstorm?
So, to the voice in the sky, would this be done so that we are able to transfer, or is it normally a planned thing?
This is done so that you are able to transfer. You know that when Dean Amara said she was going to talk to the weather forecasters, these are the casters who make the weather happen.
Cool.
They're not okay. The literal
to-
weathercasters.
I love it.
I thought it was really clever.
Really
I'm gonna over here pat myself on the back.
To Leah Laromendis was like, yes, the magic is being done such that we can make the trip over. I assume that there are other things that will also be able to make their way over as planned, but their schedules were likely able to be moved up because of our needs.
Interesting. How do they make weather?
I suppose that magic would be an insufficient answer.
Am I in this group?
Yeah, this is all happening before you split off.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would say, considering I lived in the desert, it's probably just them manipulating the elements to create the circumstances for the weather they want.
And kind of, there's a spell called Control Weather.
I know that one.
Which, oh really? Neat. But with the proper casting of that, you can, over the course of however long it's going to take, significantly impact the weather around you.
That sounds cool.
It is a fairly powerful magic.
Be that powerful when Diablo knows it. I gave him a smirk.
Ooh, burn.
I believe there are
He sprouts
even
into
a
an
few
elemental and crushes
professors. What was that? I was talking over you. Go ahead.
it. I was making a joke.
We encourage jokes.
Yeah.
I just say he sprouts into an elemental and crushes you.
Oh,
So,
so when you
Laromendis-
die, you're being reincarnated as a toad.
Laromendis will say there are, I'm sure, a fair few amongst even the professors here who would envy the powers that Jebel is capable of commanding.
Alright, so you hear this message, you continue on the streets, people are splitting off, so I have Leah, Lara, and Tatsuya are going to the School of Conjuration to obtain tuning forks. You are going to send, I know it was Jebel and Vendar, yes. To Alchemy / Armory. The Alchem Armory. Ooh, that's good. I'm keeping Pharmacy. To get their pharmaceuticals.
You get the good stuff.
Always gotta get the good stuff. Out of curiosity, there... Cyrus, are you sprouting dragon wings and flying your butt around?
No. I just kind of like the waiting bit.
He just likes to feel tall, you know?
I mean, I do, especially since Jubble went and outgrew me with magic.
Well, I just
person in the group.
I just want to know if you do ever end up sprouting your wings in a place like this.
I will let you know.
Cyrus wanted to guess.
Well,
I wanted to
because
write it
of-
down earlier when you were listing it off. I'm like, that's a great idea, and I stared at my notebook and I didn't write it down. Like,
Cyrus is going to Jerry.
Yeah, right.
about
You're
the,
both
spiral
going
tower.
to Jerry.
So Jerry needs. We might be able to send Vendar and Jebel off first if they don't want to meet Jerry.
I want to meet Jerry.
So Leah and Tatsuya are gonna be with me because Laromendis
You're
needs
stuck.
to be there to make introductions.
So I guess that is the question. You overheard this discussion with the Furbolg about this mysterious ancient man who is a myth and a legend named Jerry. Who teaches a subject that no one would ever want to take. So, do you want to meet him, Javelin Bender?
How long would meeting
What was
him
it he
take?
thinks?
I have
Think
no
ages?
idea.
What was your question, Jebel?
What did they say? Did people say what he teaches, or is it just
The
nobody knows?
Furball did not say. Laromendis had said that Jerry's classes are quite interesting when you can actually pin them down. But there was not more discussion on that there.
Yeah, the Furbolg's description of what Jerry taught was some subject that no one would actually want to take.
Which is clearly Laromendis' subject.
Laromendis was a little disheartened at that reaction. Not surprised, you noticed, but disheartened.
I'm going to also go back to my room before I leave and put all my stuff. I'm not going to put on the armor, but I'm going to put it in my bag of holding and take it with me.
Oh, okay, so you don't want people seeing that you have it.
No, I don't care. It's just the point of me sitting down at the table reading. I don't want to be wearing my armor.
You don't want to be a glorious beacon of...
Yeah, I don't need to do that. So,
Okay.
I'm not going to.
Very well.
Yeah.
What happens to the sword?
Like Raiken. I guess Raiken's usually in his regular clothes now, isn't he?
Yeah, since he can just snap his armor on and off. What happens with the sword and shield? Do you wear those, or do they also go in the bag?
We're in a place of study. To my feel, it's going in the bag too.
Okay, good to know. Alright, so the library is literally right across from the building that you're staying in, the dormitory. So you would be able to split off from the party immediately as they discuss who's going to potentially meet this Jerry person. Is that alright?
I'm gonna kind of linger for a second because I kind of want to have a general idea where people are going, so I could, if I need to find someone, I can.
Yes, you have access to the same information that I have access to. Basically, you know where they are all planning to go at this point, since the discussion happened with you there.
Well, what I'm saying is, in character, I'm gonna kind of linger a little and then go off when everyone else goes off.
Okay. So I guess then the only question to answer is still Jebel Vendar. Yes, no, Jerry, go.
Out of the way is Jerry from the, like, how much further would we go after you introduced us to Jerry? Before you split off, anyway.
I think it's on the way, which is why it's a question. Just because you guys are going fairly far away from most of the buildings, just because it's better to keep the alchemy labs,
And
detached.
what time is it?
It's something like 4 now.
Yeah, it's
somewhere
between 3 and 4.
When are we going to the Feywild?
Dusk.
And who are you again?
What time is dusk?
Like 8:30 to 9.
I don't know. If this guy is as long-winded as Laromendis, I think we should just go straight to...
Shots are being fired left and right. It is
like
a maelstrom out there.
I like to think that when I am talking about things, I never speak more than is necessary to give the proper context to things.
I'm glad you think that.
Yeah, I give him a very, like, I give him a look.
I imagine that most of the conversation with Jerry won't require us to be there, just the introduction. Hopefully he doesn't chase me out this time, but
This time?
He's chased you out before?
Laromendis just sort of like pauses. and then just occasionally.
Occasionally. As long as it doesn't take too long. I wanna try something, and if we don't have enough time for it because we spent too long talking to this dude, be upset.
Very well. Could I, out of character, request that you do stuff with Yukikaze first, so that I can give my cat her medication?
Yes.
Cool.
Fair enough.
So I'm gonna step away to do that.
Okay, so, Yukikaze, they are splitting off.
Then I will be walking to the library.
Alright. It's right across the street. It is a large building with a big double door on it. Big dragonborn statue out front. I can move your character, or you can control yourself.
You can move me. I'm getting my dice.
Okay.
If I have to roll stuff.
You might. Absolutely fly all the way in, apparently. And, in you go. At some point, I'll populate the library. Like, books and stuff. You know, things that libraries have.
Right now, just use your imagination.
Yes, please. Please, everyone, use your imagination. Look how nice this library building looks, okay? Super nice.
It's very beautiful.
People that play D&D don't have an imagination.
Yeah, right? Imagination, what's that?
So, what I'm looking for is, you don't have to give me information right now, Tristan, but just so for...
Well, I'd like to fill about 10 minutes of talking with you.
That's fine.
Feeds
that's fine. I just don't know if you have all the info that will be needed. So, the thought process that you guys is going is looking at catastrophes and any kind of really huge abnormal events, or even regular something that was known what it was, but wasn't considered a phenomenon. So I'm looking for some big events that weren't necessarily a phenomena, and then others that were like just some crazy thing that no one knows why the hell it happened. And if there's a possibility or any conjecture or any definitive information that was relating to a god or that kind of thing. And I'll even look into the stuff that's even more kind of myth, or like not necessarily complete fact, but possibly speculation, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so you enter this building, the massive marble columns rising around you, the great doors of wood you don't quite recognize. It doesn't look like mahogany. It's far harder than ebony. Open before you as you step up to them without you reaching out to push on something that looks like you might struggle to move it. And within, you see neatly ordered rows of book stacks, and among them tables and seats and cushions of all manner for people to utilize to read, study, take notes. And you see many, 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 many people partaking of this, especially now. You see small little cadres of people sitting in discussion over things that they're reading. You can hear people talking about, the answers to tests, how well they've been doing in such and such class, all of it relating to magic, much of it over your head, or things that you haven't heard of. And you can see, you notice everyone here is wearing these colorful robes, some yellow, some blue, some red, all of them with some kind of magical effect happening every now and then upon them. And you can see these people moving about that have bars at the shoulders of their robes, similar to Lairs, though very distinct. Bars that the majority of the people you're looking at don't have. So you can quickly piece together that these are probably people who can help you. And so you go and you find these people. You speak to a Dragonborn, as several people in attendance and working at this university are Dragonborn, and ask this person to help you locate these things. And this person will direct you to a set of stacks that relate to the history of Amaranta, specifically large and catastrophic events. And you find lots of tomes covering things like death tolls and, tidal waves, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, these types of things, which, are natural, air quotes, because they're as much the fault of any intervening god as anything else that happens in the world. So you do find events such as these. You do also find things in the order of hauntings, rising dead. You actually manage to find a selection, a book that specifically talks about the rising dead in Aspara, which seems to be dated this year.
This year?
This year. And it, that piquing your interest, you crack this open, you skim through it, and you find out that there was this largely unexplained event in which several towns across the mid-band of Aspara suddenly experienced their buried dead rising from their graves and rolling through the town, slaughtering the men in each town and adding them to their number, leaving behind women and children.
I'm gonna compare my notes or my mental recollection of our travels when we did encounter the dead, and I'll think that this, if I'm thinking right, this probably
sounds familiar.
intersects what we were doing.
It does. You joined the party at Arcosia, and they came back to the mainland at Volinar. There was the end of aggression between Bramdor and Aspara, and then you transferred to Aspara. When you got back to Aspara, the party told you, we need to go find our wagon, and you immediately began following a trail of destroyed villages, all of which had their men slaughtered and added to a army of zombies, which you recall fighting at Shatterstone Keep in Thanandir.
Alright, so while I'm standing here, I want to look and see if the guy or the individual that helped me is still near me.
Yeah, he would be reshelving books nearby.
And I'll politely go over and be like, excuse me, I got a quick question.
Yes, what can I help you with?
This information seems extremely new. Like, how quickly do you compile your information in the library?
The Dragonborn will look down at the book and hold out a claw for it.
Oh, I'll hand it to him.
He quickly thumbs back to the beginning and checks the dates. He says, yes, this was just added maybe a month ago. This was a very, very recent event, but it hit such a wide area, it was widely reported on. The temples of Ione across that entire region made sure that the news was spread from city to city via them.
You compile that quickly and get it published into a book that quick?
He, you see this reptilian smile spread across his face, and he says, well, yes, perhaps you haven't visited a Temple of Ione, but I'd be happy to show you one of our compiling rooms.
At the moment, I would really like to expand my knowledge on the subject I'm looking at, but, I was just very... I'll say that I'm still very impressed.
The goddess of knowledge is, unmatched in her ability to disseminate knowledge.
But real quick, also, like, what is usually the quickest amount of information? Like, is there, like, is there a minimum time that that is needed to process it to get it here?
I would say that it's entirely dependent on
The information.
how far-reaching the effects of that information are. If it is information that is deemed to be of immediate importance, then it is immediately compiled and sent out, and depending on how much information that is, or how detailed it needs to be, that could be the same day. That could be within hours of hearing about it.
Real? Okay. I will keep that in mind in my researching. Thank you. And
It is honestly the one reason I am sad that there are not more temples of my own around the world. If so, we could get this information to so many more places so much more quickly. The university is lucky to have one of these transference rooms.
It is still very impressive nonetheless.
Well, perhaps you should think about joining the temple.
I am... We'll see. Or, no, we'll say see. It's like... I will keep that in mind. And I'm going to get back to my studies. Thank you again. And I will move back to the grouping of books that I was directed to, and then can continue my research.
Looking further into more unexplained phenomena and things that may or may not be related to gods or unknown creatures, you see that there is another record of a town that was far off in Shirkawa that was visited by some unknown aberrant creature that caused the deaths of many children and the town to have lost time for some months earlier this year.
Why you keep bringing up stuff like that?
I mean, you're looking for unexplained phenomena, and, like, you're a nexus of it.
Yukikaze closes the book and puts it immediately back on the shelf.
You just hear this voice call from down this, gap between stacks of ways, like, please be careful with the books, sir.
I apologize. And I will continue.
You do find reports of a city on the southern coast of Sudaran that was flooded out some 75 years ago. This was attributed to the goddess Melora being displeased with them.
Okay.
Is this in the vein of things that you are looking for?
Well, if you want, the mindset for Yukikaze is looking for things that might be fallouts for bringing Tiamat to the plane, and or the death of a god is the train of thought of things I'm looking for hints about.
Okay. In that case, I can refine your search a little, and tell you that you do find a number of books that span a large amount of time, some couple hundred years, and I mean as the period during which they were written, not necessarily the period during which they're talking about, that all seem to talk, conjecture, speculate on the implications, fallout, and the hows and whos of the rise, the fall of Nerul and the rise of the Raven Queen.
Oh, okay.
There are a number of people talking about how, prior to several thousand years ago, there was a different god of undeath, a more... how do I want to describe it? let's just call him more chaotic in the way he managed souls as lives ended. Did not have a strong stance against undeath, and people just sort of ended up willy-nilly displaced around the plains after death when that happened, which is really hard to corroborate, though there are several priests who could find and talk to these souls to find this information. And these are the kinds of things that you're finding is, well, according to such and such priest of Pelor, according to such and such priest of the other god, saying we have spoken with souls, post-mortem that seem to have gone here or there in the astral sea. And that is how people have determined that this was a more chaotic god of death. All of them seem to agree that at some point, something happened, and there was a moment where the term that one author uses is soul burst, when there was a scattering of souls that were dead suddenly appearing in places unexpected. This person also talks about, and is corroborated by a couple other authors, an appearance of creatures being able to move to the material plane from the Shadowfell, known as the Shatterkai. Their creation and subsequent appearance is not well understood, though it is, at this point, pretty well documented that they are this somewhat elven race of displaced spirits, supposedly. They haunt the Shadowfell mostly, and are a constant problem for souls trying to move through the Shadowfell. So they appeared, and it was shortly after their appearance, within a few years, that people started appearing across Amaranta, shouting this new name, decrying Nerul, and proclaiming the Raven Queen. And it was over the next several years that people were finding that people who worshipped Nerul, especially as clerics, were losing their influence and their power, and people who were hoisting up this new name, the Raven Queen, were growing in influence and power. So this seems like it is in line with the type of thing you're looking for. The fall of a god.
Alright, so I will bookmark that and set it aside and keep looking for more. And so after I look for a little more, I'm going to come back to that and then continue reading it. I'm trying to see if there's any, find multiple instances and then read them both.
Okay.
But it's saying if I don't find it, it's fine. I was just like,
yeah,
this is the process Yukikaze is doing.
This is the primary one that you see. Although, thinking about this, you do harken back. I'm trying to kind of scratch my own memory here and remember who was around when it was discussed, but I do believe it was among the entire party. It was because Naravar was there. So during the time that Naravar was in the party, there had been a mention that certain names sounded familiar to the bird that he was traveling with, Cal. And Naravar had, excused him to the party, saying, sorry, he just thinks this is the same person that we knew on our world 400 years ago. Which Naravar clearly thought was a ridiculous suggestion. However, it did lead Ash to begin discussing something he called the Dawn War, which was the birth of the world, and the pantheon of gods that currently rule over it.
Okay.
You know that he talked about this. I'm not going to tell you what you do or don't remember necessarily just from that, but it does come back to your mind. now that you're trying to think of Rise and Fall of Gods and the fallout, the effects of that. What you're reading about this Fall of Nerul, Rise of the Raven Queen, is that it did lead to a great deal of strife and a great loss of life, as the followers of Nerul struggled and thrashed as they lost power, trying to reclaim what they believed was theirs rightfully.
Okay.
So, and of course, Dawn War, even if you only remember the name, does imply that the struggles between gods are not victimless.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit summary, but it would not be inaccurate to say that largely what you find is an indication that when a god falls, or when gods war directly, mortals tend to lose, and lose big.
Yeah. Okay. And
Now, the Raven Queen is a bit happier story, at least as far as you care. The Raven Queen has always been the goddess of death, according to these writings, for at least the last, couple thousand years. But that period, before she was the god of death, there was apparently another god of death, and that transition period was not great. Things are fine now, though.
Okay.
Is that more what you're kind of looking for? Does that help?
Yes, that does help.
Okay. That has definitely covered our 10 minutes, so Sam, are you back?
Yes.
Okay. So then, I shall move on to Jebel and Vendar are meeting Jerry.
I think that
Sure.
Vendar seemed amenable to the meeting of Jerry, but possibly not the discussing with Jerry.
It seemed to me like you wanted to meet Jerry and then leave Cyrus off with him. Accurate?
That was my intent.
Yes, I was okay with that, as long as we don't stay there very long. I'm okay to meet him.
Okay. You don't have to travel very far. For one thing, as you are moving away from the teleportation hub, you notice that the buildings are of varying sizes, but the buildings closest to it seem to be unmitigatedly the largest buildings, as though perhaps they were built first and stacked up to meet certain needs of the time before more buildings of lower stature were built to spread things out a little. The reasons for this are not immediately obvious, but Laromendis does lead you to a tall building that is 3 or 4 normal stories, similar to the dorm you were in, and as you head up, you do see it as more intermingling classrooms and sleeping spaces, and then it seems to narrow out into almost a spire, and you find yourself climbing a wide spiral staircase, broken up by floors that could maybe hold 20-30 people shoulder to shoulder on them, moving up for another several floors, let's call it 5. And he just seems to keep leading you up, and up, and up. You do find that your legs are tired and burning by the time you reach a floor that, rather than having an open space in the middle of the spiral, has a wall at the edge of the stairs and a door that simply says Dean of Anthropology on it, in both in Elven, Draconic, and Common.
While walking up, Leah will scoff Laromendis. Why couldn't these also be like those transport directly upwards things?
I believe that he had an office in a building like that, and then he moved.
Wanted less visitors, I guess.
He was never fond of them.
You make them have to climb 1,000 fucking stairs.
So, question, Tristan. Does it take more energy to climb stairs or to flap wings?
I mean, it would probably take more energy to climb the stairs, but you are limited in space to flap wings as you're moving up the spiral staircase. It's up to you if you want to try it.
It sounds like it'd do more harm than good, so I guess I'll stick with walking.
Yeah, but like the rule of funny.
I expect Jerry will cover for that in spades.
We shall see.
Your move speed while flying is the same as your walking speed, is that correct?
Yep,
Okay.
it is.
I mean, if
Just
that's
look
not the
what's
rule of
right.
funny right there, I don't know what is. You grow amazing dragon wings like no one's ever seen. You still move as slow as normal.
Still can't keep up.
You still
with
have tiny legs.
party.
Your tiny legs and therefore tiny wings. Anyway,
Well,
not to
little
poke too much
batwings
fun.
behind us.
It is kind of entertaining to me. In any event, so you
That's
trudge
fine.
your ass up these stairs. Everyone is tired. Their legs are burning and unhappy when you get to the top of these stairs. This was not a fun climb.
You could
We're
have
like
mentioned
3/4 of
the
the way
climb.
I'll try the wings then.
Sorry.
Could have mentioned the climb when we were deciding whether we wanted to meet this guy.
I had blocked most of it out of my mind, honestly.
I've been lied to. Okay, so you sprout some wings. You do find very quickly that at the places where one floor ends, you know, the stairs pop up onto the open floor plan. You are grazing the tips of your wings there, and it is painful. Just receive a point of damage 3 times.
Worth it.
Huh?
I said worth it.
And on one floor, you do hear a gasp as somebody is clearly on the floor as you zip by. Zip is probably the wrong word at your move speed. As you flutter by.
I'm not having to deal with the difficult terrain, at least.
Yeah, that's
Imagine
true.
like a warlock from Destiny, just slowly.
Just gliding at an
Just
upward
slowly
angle
drifting by.
in the most unnatural way possible.
No, that would be like the fly spell. These are like actual wings.
So you do hear someone gasp, and you look over, and there's an elf with a wand in their hand that seems to be sparking blue as they, seem to like lean over and look, and you hear a voice say, "A sorcerer?"
Trying to decide if I want to wink or wave as I fly by, but it's definitely one of those two. Gonna go with wave.
Wave with one
Just
hand
slam
and
into
wink
the
with the
wall.
other eye.
Because of the difficult terrain of stairs, he is able to get ahead of you guys since you're all moving at 15 and he's moving at 25.
But that makes him feel powerful.
That just gives me a chance to rest my legs once I get to the top and wait for you guys.
So you get to the top, and there is this door written in Elvish, Draconic, and Common that says Dean of Anthropology.
I
As you
read
land,
all of those.
You notice that it's not an open floor this time. There's a wall enclosing the stair area, and you find you have to stop flapping and land because of the very enclosed space.
I'll land and put the wings away and just like sit on the stairs waiting for at least Laromendis.
It only takes them about 20 seconds to catch up. But you all get there, and you see this forbidding door in dark wood with the very, what's the word? Not corroded. Tarnished plaque etched in 3 languages. What do you do, Lara?
Laromendis takes a minute to catch his breath.
Leah sit down and start massaging her feet.
I regret this decision.
After a bit of time, so when you say that, Laromendis is like, well, let's just hope that he's home. Then go over
He
and
might not even be here.
knock on the door.
Tatsuya just looks at everyone and is like, really?
If it's not home, I am using the fly spell.
You guys are this tired?
No, I'm
I
fine.
give you an evil look.
Oh, that does remind me something. I'd been keeping a certain thing in my mind for this, but this hadn't crossed my mind until just now. The wings appearing is by magic, isn't it?
Yes, as we had determined that the anti-magic field would put them away.
Right.
Does
Which
that
means that
mean
you can't pull them out.
Of course. Guess I have to have clearance or something.
That mean he's also falling behind because
You would be falling behind and ahead. I apologize I hate retconning things, but it's one of those things that I'd been waiting for somebody to say I cast a spell, and I hadn't thought about the wings at all.
Well,
I'd been thinking about them for
Raiken
other reasons, but that's right. They're conjured by magic, basically.
yeah. If we had a Raiken or Hikaze here, I'd probably see if I could get one of them to carry me, but I'm not trying that with Tatsuya.
He seems very friendly.
I doubt that highly.
And wouldn't Jubble be falling behind too?
I mean, they have the same base speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can let them lag behind, or you can stay with them.
They're also
We can go
lighter,
just a little
though.
bit slower.
Okay.
I mean,
They're also lighter, so eventually they won't be as tired, so we might slow down while they catch up.
Yeah, I do only
Well, yeah,
weigh
but
like
it's
20
comparison to their body weight. They're also not as strong because they're small.
Yeah, climbing the stairs is going to be just as difficult for them as it is for you.
Yeah.
Maybe even more difficult because they have to push themselves more.
Yeah, tiny
Okay.
little legs.
Yeah, they have to push themselves more percentage of their, push them further than we do.
Regardless, no wings for me.
Actually, that's a good point, and it does give me an opportunity to showcase how the Marble City does seem to care about the people here. And so I will say that as you smaller people are stepping on the stairs, which do appear to be designed for medium-sized people, which means, get those knees up, you find that as you raise your foot to land on the first thing, a portion of the staircase begins to jut out towards you to catch your foot in between, like half steps, making it significantly easier to climb.
But they have twice as many steps.
Well, look, can't solve all the problems.
I'd rather have twice as many steps than half as many that are twice the size.
Yeah.
Have as many steps, but rather than high knee steps.
And yes, you do find that these steps are actually quite accommodating. The portion of step changing its shape for you to step on and step off, and then going back to normal after you've passed. An interesting little bit of transmutation magic.
As I still would have.
That isn't being stopped by whatever is stopping the other magic.
Not that
And so, since I still would have at least tried the wings thing, I'm gonna ask Laromendis, do they have some sort of anti-magic field on the place?
So I assume that is the case, that there are at least certain areas that are restricted and requiring permissions and things. How does this function?
Do you want me to answer that question here and now?
Laromendis would explain it.
Good.
So,
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure of it.
Yeah.
You know that the entire island has a particular magical spell cast upon it such that no one can conjure magic unless they have been deemed permitted, which is controlled by the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the reasons that the robes are divided up by school. It's not just an identifier, it's also a permission slip.
What you're saying is if I stole some robes.
So I need to enroll in School of Conjuration.
Tristan,
Or is it
have you watched the Owl House?
No. Yes.
Yeah, because this kind of reminds me of that.
Now, would his wings ripping through the robes destroy that?
It's entirely possible.
Can't answer that question until you try it.
The wings rip through, he flies up, just a little bit, and then falls flat on his face.
And I'm not even allowed to cast Featherfall, which I learned last level. Because I wanted to pack a parachute just in case.
I would say that I can see the parallel, but I think that Laromendis would assure you that it is much less nefarious than that.
Anywho. Curiosity satisfied, we get to the door.
You get to the door. You catch your breath. Laromendis, I believe, was about to declare knocking or some such thing.
Yes.
You knock. You hear the knocks echo voluminously within the room. And for several seconds that stretch out to almost a minute, you hear nothing.
I wait an amount of time that seems reasonable for me to have waited for him, and then knock again.
Almost as soon as your hand hits the door for the second round of knocking, you hear a rasp from the other side of the door shout, "Go away!"
I turned to everyone, he is here!
Office hours are posted on the ground floor!
He's still alive.
Are they
This is,
actually posted on the ground floor?
you saw that
I'm not going
there
back
were
down.
the corners of a piece of paper that had been there and was ripped off.
Of course.
I'm sorry, did Vendar say, alright, I'm good here, I'm leaving now?
I was saying is if I go back down, I'm not coming back up.
Okay.
You would turn away an old friend, Professor?
I have no old friends!
He likes to kid. Laromendis looks a bit wounded.
I give him a pat on the
It's-
back.
There was that
Laromendis,
one
sir.
whippersnapper.
Come
That hanger-on finally left.
in. He's back. May you open the doors so that you can see him, or rather that he can see you.
Well, that just sounds like a terrible idea.
I'm going to open the door, sir.
At your own peril.
I pause at that.
I
Trying-
take a step back.
I hide behind Laromendis.
How... I feel like it's probably fine. I open the door.
You open the door, I imagine, slowly, waiting for
Yeah.
something to spring at you.
Spring at me, fall on me. Something.
Like
You-
a bucket of water.
I was almost expecting the door to just explode on you.
You
Impale
find,
you.
as you slowly push the door open and begin sticking your head in to peer around its edge, that there is a recognizable old man standing just beyond its swing range, holding up a bound book.
Why are you rolling stealth?
Because he's scary, so I was hiding behind you, because I can do that.
It is good to see you again, Professor.
I got published! He's...
I did not catch what you said.
he interrupts you immediately and shouts, I got published.
Wonderful!
He's holding up a book that you know he was published for over 100 years ago.
It is always an interesting read.
I'm going to read you the first 10 chapters. Sit down.
Before that happens, sir, I have someone here who...
Please hold your questions until after the lecture.
There's, I gesture. Is there enough room in the room for everyone to come in?
Imagine the TARDIS.
Okay. Yeah.
I lean over to Cyrus and whisper, "He's even worse than I imagined."
Shh, you'll blow
I'm
my
gonna
cover.
remind you. I
Please,
don't want to
everyone,
be here long.
come in.
For the rest of you, as Laromendis opens this door and starts ushering you inside, what you see is an old man, wrinkles, doddering step, seemingly frail and fragile, and as he is making his way away from you to a large cushiony seat that he is going to creak his old bones into, he begins to turn, and you notice that he has pointed full elf ears. And you realize, every one of you, that you have never seen an old elf. As far as you've ever been told, they die young.
How does an elf get old? How old is he?
We don't know.
Roll? Never mind.
We don't know. How old do you think he is?
Thousands, probably.
He looks the same as I remember him from my time as a student.
He's got at least one more wrinkle than then.
It's
that
mostly
was-
the same.
How long ago was that? Like 100 years ago?
I was a student about 150 years ago.
It's nothing to him. Look, how old are you?
What's that? I'm reading chapters.
Did you ask that to Laromendis or to Jerry?
I said to Laromendis.
He's reading them. He's not reading it out loud.
No, he is.
Okay.
He's just rattling things off into the room. I'm letting you guys talk under him.
I'm just over 300. So I
Just
guess actually it
over
would have
300.
been closer to 200 years that I was a student here.
Now, who's the oldest person you know other than him? The oldest elf you know other than him?
I guess out of character, how old is the oldest elf I know other than Jerry?
Without giving you a name, I would say probably at this point 500, 550.
Sounds good. I have a cousin who I think at this point is pushing 550.
Your parents are older than your cousin?
Not that cousin.
And do they look anything like that?
I mean, it's been quite a while since I saw him, but he still seemed...
Ale.
I was gonna say spry.
This
Hale is a
man
better
seems
word.
spry. Your cousin seems hale.
Last time I saw him, he seemed hale.
I'm sorry. Jerry just needs spry. Spry is his word.
Yeah, Jerry is very spry. This, I gesture to Cyrus, is a friend of mine who was hoping to talk to you about the spiral tower in the Feywild, sir.
You step sideways and push him forward. Cyrus, your hide check is now nullified.
Yep, that's perfectly reasonable.
And Jerry, who has been reading, completely oblivious to the fact that you are having a conversation in front of him, stops and looks up. You see his eyes greatly magnified through the lenses of his glasses as he peers at you. These gray eyes, like not blue, not green, gray irises, just nothing but crow's feet around every edge of the eye. And he like leans forward, like slightly folding the book, and you see him like reach up and grab the wispiest hairs of long silver beard you've ever seen. This may once have been a radiant gold and full off the end of his chin, but now there's just barely anything to hide his lapels behind. as he strokes these hairs that look like they might just break in his hand. He considers Cyrus for a moment and says, "Well, I thought you left the school."
I'm back for a brief visit, and we'll be leaving again shortly, so I don't imagine we'll have time to properly catch up, unfortunately.
He, like, rolls his eyes and they disappear out of the overly magnifying lenses momentarily, and he's just this terrifying solid white momentarily. He says, "It was bad enough when you came to study under me. I'm not letting you give me another."
He's coming with me, but he had some questions while we were visiting.
He gets one.
Make it broad. I say that.
Huh? What's that? He's got a broad?
Well, I have done my introductions.
I would ask, what do you know of the Spiral Tower and its possible location?
Do you rattle this question off before they get to leave?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh no.
Good luck, guys.
Vendor is opening the door.
Yeah, you may file out as you see him lift himself. What's the word I'm looking for? Laborious is correct, but what's the other one? Mountainously. One where you're really slow.
I'm already on my way down the stairs.
No, there's such a great word for this.
Arduously.
Man, I wish I could remember this word now. It's such a great word. In any event, he lifts himself.
Speed.
Glacially. Glacial is a good one. But he lifts himself laboriously from his chair and folding both arms behind his back, if only to keep himself from folding completely forward, starts creaking his way toward a bookshelf. Is everyone taking this opportunity to escape?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Vendor's already gone.
Leah too.
I suppose Laromendis will go as well, and lean down to Cyrus and say, "I am curious to hear what he tells you. Good luck."
Tatsuya is definitely leaving.
Tatsuya is definitely leaving.
I'll try and ask Laromendis before he goes. What do I do if he doesn't let me leave when it's time to, leave?
Tell him that you're thrilled with his response and that you're intending to enroll.
Got it.
And then I leave.
Tell him to lie.
Well, it might not be a lie, just I'm not giving him a time frame.
How does Ash feel about that? Tristan.
About him lying?
Yeah.
You actually see, Ash, focusing on Cyrus's face, and it's harder to tell from side, but he appears to be nodding vigorously.
In this case, it's excused.
Apparent.
Are you going to question Ash about that as you descend the stairs? Out of curiosity.
What, me? No.
Yeah. No? Okay. Then for, Cyrus, this exceedingly old elf, is going to, rickets his way across the room over to a old bookshelf, and you can hear, the shuffling of a few hard items, and he turns and starts heading back towards you, but instead of carrying a book, he appears to be carrying a longsword in an ornate sheath. Blues, purples, and teals swirling over its entire length. its hilt in the shape of a maple leaf folded over in a finger guard.
Cool.
And he sits down a moment, says, in a suddenly very serious voice, "What exactly did you want to know?"
I'd like to know how to find it, if possible.
Ha! It's not!
Well,
One doesn't find the Spiral Order. One either is or isn't the Spiral Order.
well, from what I have been told from a member, it was possible to find. What has you so convinced it is not?
Because I am also a member. And I know that when you are the Spiral Order, the tower finds you.
See. So it's not something you're necessarily born into, but not something one can seek.
It is an honor one earns. And I've got at least a few lifetimes to show for earning this.
Then perhaps you might be able to set me on the proper path.
I cannot. Only you can make you a spiral.
Alright.
The question is, are you worthy?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Then you're not worthy.
Certainly like to be, and I intend to improve myself until I am.
Then you will be worthy.
But it would be helpful to know what it is in particular I need to improve.
You must make you a spiral.
I really wish I could cast detect thoughts to try and understand this guy a little better.
Perhaps your problem is not whether or not you are worthy, but whether or not you are ready.
That very well could be. As life has been moving quickly, I've yet been able to take up Laromendis on his offer to assist me in studies.
Well, maybe you need to make time.
Indeed.
If that is what it takes to be worthy, then you must do it. Make you a spiral. Find the tower by letting it find you. The only piece of advice, true advice I can offer, is not to wander in the Feywild looking for this thing. That is a sure way to die. Unless that is your goal, then by all means.
It was not my intention, but
Oh, good.
had there been a lead, I might have, well, most likely would have attempted to follow up on it.
You know where you must go. Find what you are looking for. He's clutching the sword against him as he asks this question and looks into your eyes. His whole body shaking with the effort of standing.
When I was told, it's only found in the Feywild, so being there may be part of it, but being there and being worthy and ready, from my understanding of what you have said, is also a requirement.
And... oh?
Well, if I am to be ready, then I would at least like to know what your experience with it was, or is, like.
It is a way of life. One devotes themselves to Corellan and the ideals of magic and knowledge. One studies to understand the essence of magic and its interactions with the world. But it can only be done, and he points this dodgy hand that just shakes violently the farther away from his body it gets, at the window. Says, out there.
Meaning in the world, I expect?
I mean outside of my office. Anywhere else.
I see.
He
If
creaks his way back over to the bookshelf, and you hear a clunk as he sets the sword down, and he hobbles back over and stands before the chair and says, so, was that helpful, Sonny?
perhaps, if you wouldn't mind answering one more question, could you point me in the direction of, the best place on the island to learn about conjuration?
He
This is where I am most lacking.
licks his lips loudly. You can see that there's barely any teeth behind them. And he sighs heavily, and he points at the window again. This is not the school of conjuration. I trust you can read a map or a campus directory and don't need my help for that. But I am charging for all of this time you're taking up.
Charging what exactly? I say as I start moving towards the door.
Well, you're not wearing a robe, so I know you're not part of the university. You haven't paid your dues.
Not yet, but I am planning
Sit
to enroll.
down.
Dang it. I tried it.
He's going to sweep his hand broadly as you come back toward him, and you're going to see, almost as like this veil is drawn back, a black, shining obsidian table appears between the two of you, and atop it, a glass set of dragon chess.
I almost always choose to be proficient in Dragon Chess. I need to double check if this is one of those characters. Doesn't look like it. Darn it.
I've got an important game coming up, and you're going to help me practice a little, so clear your schedule.
Very well. I'm not super familiar with...
Excellent. We begin. My move is first. And you begin playing dragon chess with Jerry.
I would like to imagine that I'm at least familiar with the rules, especially if it's actually related to dragons. Perhaps Cyrus's father had an interest in the game.
Cyrus's father hated the game.
Makes sense.
It's like, why does the dragon not simply eat the other pieces? It is bigger and more powerful.
He has asked that exact question in your childhood. You do know how the pieces move, however. But you quickly realize that Jerry knows something deeper about the game, a strategy that you are simply not privy to, because as many times as you play him, you cannot seem to beat him, and at first this isn't surprising, but after a few games you start to get this inkling, like an itch at the back of your mind, that something isn't quite adding up.
This effort usually detect thoughts.
If only you could.
No, I think
really
he
wish you
is.
could.
You don't know, but he is wearing a robe, and Lair told you that those are special.
Do I have a way of knowing what school his robe is of?
No. You know that it is black, and seems to draw in what little light is in this room, just like the Dean of the School of Abjuration, but unlike hers, it does not seem to have that opalescent eggshell effect that cascades across it like hers did. You do see a few other effects, like you swear you saw like a little tornado riding down his sleeve at one point. You thought you saw like a dragon swirling around one of his shoulders, but that quickly puffed into smoke. Either he is of multiple, or he is of a school that you have not been able to register yet.
Given how old he is, and, well, the fact that they had mentioned he has tenure, perhaps he just has permission for all schools of magic.
It's
would
possible.
make sense.
But he does have this. He switches as you play between a completely placid, vacant expression, expectant, seemingly waiting for you to make your move, and a very unexpected, cocky sneer as he makes his own moves.
Okay. In case I'm right, I want to try and think of something just incredibly distracting or something he might not want to be aware of. Maybe get him to stop looking.
As you do that, he seems to be suddenly overcome with a palpitation of some kind, and seems to lose his breath for a moment. You see him, like, gasping and like, holding one wrist with his other hand before sliding slowly to the floor.
I make my move, and then I see if he's okay.
Only a single move?
You go to check on him, and he is breathing heavily hard, seems to be in a bad way, and he looks deeply into your eyes with those magnifying lenses for a moment before he starts to slow his breathing again and waves at you, saying, "That's fine. Happens sometimes when you get to my age. Please, let's finish our game." And he takes his seat, and you indicate that it is his move, and he looks over the board a little bit before selecting a piece and moving it 3 squares and saying, "Checkmate."
I'm assuming it's actually checkmate.
It is in fact checkmate, and it's weird. You're pretty sure that it shouldn't have been possible to make checkmate in a single move from the move you just made. You're not great at the game, but you're pretty sure he should have needed to move at least twice. But everything checked out. You watched him make the move.
I think maybe he has a mage hand. Just moving things when I'm not looking.
It all seems to match with your memory. Everything looked right. Can you trust your memory?
I'm not sure.
So, the rest of the party. Rest of the party, rest of the party. Okay, Alchem Armory. Jebel and Vendar, you are going to be led to a building that seems to be very squat, much further down, with a large ring of fresh lawn around it, and then a large courtyard around that has a wall separating it from the rest of the quad. And as you are led inside by Laromendis, again, you have been assured that you can procure the things you need because of the procedure he went through at lunch. You notice that the stone walls of this building are at least twice as thick as the stone walls of other buildings. You also notice that, unlike other buildings, there are magical doors that open and close in sequence to let people through in a very orderly fashion. No one gets to cut ahead. You see that this is a busily attended building.
But what's so special about the Alchem Armory? Why is it got thicker walls and special doors?
Are you asking this
I'm asking
to Laromendis
Laromendis.
before? Okay. The armory portion, which is containing the vast stores of many of the reagents that can be used, is quite valuable and regulated. And the alchemy portion of it is also quite valuable, and certain experimentation regarding alchemy can be
Volatile.
yes. So is also highly regulated.
Okay.
A student passing by kind of overhears this explanation and kind of, like, gets this, like, impish smile on his face before he says, also, this one time somebody actually tried to go in and steal some reagents, but when they put them in their bag, they spilled, mixed, and blew up. We lost one of the walls of the building. Isn't that right, Professor?
That was an interesting staff meeting after that.
He snickers mischievously before carrying on his way.
Do be careful, I say to the two of them.
Do you think they'll have any purple worm poison? Do I have to buy stuff?
Well, to the second question, yes.
Okay, then purple worm poison is real expensive, so I won't buy any more of that.
Well, I think they want you to pay for the stuff. I mean, technically you don't have to.
I mean, we'll see how much purple worm poison I have after we leave.
Two or three people out in the quad, like, lean over it, hearing the technically you don't have to line.
Yeah.
They seem very interested.
I look over at Apple, like, don't suggest stealing.
You do have to pay.
I'm just saying that it's...
And also, I did not give permission to requisition any purple worm poison, as it is not relevant to our studies.
You think they'll have any, though?
It is possible.
What
Am
would
I-
I
am I-
roll to see if I can kind of come up with ideas of what you mix that would explode like that, just from mixing?
Alchemy's fun.
This is why you don't throw the sodium in the bag with the water bottle.
No, you do that with the cesium.
Only if you can get the cesium.
Out of curiosity, did you want to leave it as it is possible, or did you want a more definitive answer? I didn't know if you wanted me to weigh in on that. You didn't ask.
Yeah, I'd like a definitive answer, as definitive as Laromendis would know.
Pretty much, if a reagent exists, this place is able to get at least some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, while your answer is not wrong in any way, because it's possible that their store is tapped, it's very likely that they have at least a little.
Mm-hmm.
but they don't load for bear. If there are not other experiments that can be run with the stuff, they're not supplying it for mercenaries or anything like that.
Yeah. I feel like, given my area of expertise, it would be difficult for me to requisition any, or approve requisitions for any reasonable amount, if you're looking to acquire some. But it is likely that there is some, especially if one of the professors over here is dabbling in certain things. Do you wish to speak with someone to find out what my thought with you going here had been that you were going to speak with people doing research and performing alchemy, and
I mean, I have this idea. Purple worm poison is normally inflicted, so it's like it needs to be like on a weapon. Right? But I was hoping I could maybe make some sort of like a grenade type deal, or like a potion that I could throw it and that would cause the purple worm poison to do an area effect.
that sounds horrifying. I give you a name.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this is the person you want to speak with.
You notice more heads around the area turning as you give this name. None of them look comfortable.
I like the look
Do
of
be
that.
careful.
Is purple worm poison a venom?
It would be a venom, yes.
Yes.
I want to roll if I know that. Well, I know that venoms have to be like injected.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what Vendar in fact just said about it. Is that it's an injection vector.
I want to know if Jebel knows that it's.
Oh, roll
injectable.
nature. But it seems like the kind of thing, especially a naturalist, would know. I you know what, honestly, forgo the nature roll. You know this.
So I would think, if you wanted to turn it into a grenade, you'd want, I don't know, like, some... can you aerosolize glass, so that people breathe in glass? Because the glass will cut your lungs, and if it's got purple worm poison on the glass, then that's how they breathe in the... Or will it be absorbed by the lungs? I have no idea.
Like
Laromendis looks horrified.
I was thinking about putting in like a glass bottle and throwing it. If we could make that work so that it exploded.
You see that, like, several of the people who have taken notice of your conversation and have been giving, like, varying expressions in response to different things said or implied actually kind of start to, like, give wider berth to kind of, like, back away from you. And you notice that a person is approaching rapidly. And as you turn to look, you see this Eladrin with... wild, like, gray and white streaked and black hair, just in this, like, windswept muss off the side of their head, is, you know, almost charging towards you, like, chin first. And you see that he is dressed in this white outfit, that seems to cover, like, all of his body in a draping, cloak-like manner. He's got these slick black leather boots that are clicking on the marble flags as he walks up, and his face itself, you see there's like little pock marks and scars and burns almost over many portions of it, disfiguring the nose and chin, though overall you still see he's got a sharp line to these features, very hawkish features, and his eyes are hidden behind these dark goggles that he's got snapped around his head with his tall, pointed eladrin ears sticking off away from his head. And he stops, hovering menacingly over you as he's, about 6 foot tall. And he says, "That is an interesting proposition." He points at Jebel, though you can't tell where he's looking because of the goggles. He says, "You've got a good mind for this business." And he looks over at Laromendis, his whole upper torso turning in an almost puppet-like manner. And you see this grin take only half of his mouth. He says, "May I borrow this portion of your entourage, Professor?"
I think this is the person that I had mentioned the name of.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is Lysandrius.
I think that they would be interested in discussing things with you.
I would be interested in discussing things with them. I find that some of the best ideas, he says, kind of coming low and running a hand, not against you, but around your form, almost like he would caress you, but isn't touching you, Jebel. He says, I find that some of the best ideas come from outside these claustrophobic walls. Would you... And you can't see, but you feel like his eyes are passing between you and Vendar, Jebel. Care to join me for a... And he brings up a gloved hand and seems to just bite the tip of his index finger a little. He says, practical session in alchemy.
Now that sounds interesting. I'm on board.
That's what I like to hear. Come. And he backs away from you, bent double with his arms spread wide, sweeping them in, inviting me. He says, come to my lab.
Jebel just looks at Laromendis like this, eyebrows raised, just like, what do I do?
Well, that's the man that I mentioned. If you're interested, with a V as the first letter?
V, yeah.
Okay. So he will be able to speak to many things alchemical. If you so desire, you can stop by and acquire the reagents on your way out. After you finished discussing with him. Unless your question was different than I interpreted it?
No, I think that answers it.
Good luck, and do be safe.
Thank you, Sam. Actually, thank you, all of you, for a fun new character.
I'm excited.
Figured that Vendar would like him. Good job, Tristan.
So they're gone. Led off through, and as you watch them go, following them, he does not stop doing this, mother duck leading them, backing through the courtyard, never checking where he's going. You see the students around seem to they'll catch him out the corner of their eye, do a double take, and then just immediately get out of his way. You don't see anybody who appears to be unaware of who this guy is.
There are a few that look on the two of them that are following him with just like a look of pity. One of them looks jealous.
Sorry, Leah.
Will we ever see them again?
I certainly hope so. They no harm will come to them. I imagine they might find it difficult to extricate themselves from that discussion. Especially if he gets lost, as he does. But I will, if time gets close, I will send to them and fetch them myself if necessary.
Okay.
Then, let me go back to my note. I finally wrote. That's the wrong
So
chapter.
we're going to the School of Conjuration to see
obtain
about
tuning
some tuning forks.
Like I said, I had intended to write the notes while you were saying them, which was so very helpful. I want to thank you for doing that. I was dumb and just stared at my notebook going, I should write, and I didn't. Alright, so, you go to the School of Conjuration. I think for simplicity, we will make use of the first floor of this building here to represent that. That's too deeply cut. And remove that much wall. That'll make it fine. Yeah. Alright, so I toss Tatsuya up to the top of these stairs. Just so to give a little bit of variety to what we're looking at. And I want to determine which ones. I like those big lecture halls. Okay. I'm gonna throw down a bubble. If you cut the map, can you find my bubble?
Yes.
Okay.
Find his
I see your
Michael
bubble.
Bublé.
Locked my slice, so everything's fine. Grab my Tatsuya token here. Apparently not. Oh, I can't grab the Tatsuya token because of the... Oh. Leah, are you going too?
What?
Are you going with Lair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you
the
like to move your
Conjuration was
token?
one of the things that she wanted to see.
Yeah, no, I'm asking if she wants to move her token.
Yeah, no, I got confused. I thought it was still on about, like, continuing or not. And was like, what, did we settle that? But yeah, I'm absolutely following.
Okay. I will just have Tatsu move. You can follow him. We have learned that we're not going to walk over this stuff for fear that it will cause problems.
Get stuck in the floor again.
No more getting stuck in the floor. We're done with that. Whoops, that's the wrong direction.
Oh yeah, we need to do something different. Get stuck in the ceiling this time.
Oh, it's totally possible. Oh, bye, Leah.
I walked too far. I don't know where I was. Okay, I didn't see anything because of the hole.
Alright.
I think
At
I need
least
to
we'll
move this
have
thing
some names.
There.
Are you going to go see your professor, perhaps? So that we can get Evandal?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That makes sense
person
to me,
to talk to.
too. Rather than making up more names.
One of
for
the reasons I had put him in the Conjuration School.
Yep. Alright, so you go into the School of Conjuration, and you look up your friend, Professor Yalden. You find his room pretty easily. And, after double-checking with a few students to make sure he'd be there, you do find he is occupying the front of the lecture hall between classes. I do believe he is an elf.
I think so, yeah.
Grab an elf here. Elf.
Yeah, because that was one of the reasons why he was more interested in the statue of Corellin.
My kingdom for more token selection.
One day.
One day, not today. Get out of the wall, Evandel!
Now he's
Very unbecoming of a professor.
A new form of teleportation.
That's part of his charm.
Charm is a different school of magic.
Oh, no, that's a school I'm good in.
You see him going over some what appear to be spell formulae in the common tongue, just formulations of some variations on some low-level spells, as he appears to be preparing to teach about low-level conjuration.
Mhm.
You open the door, and without looking up, he simply says, class doesn't start for another 20 minutes, but if you're here to leave something, just place it on the desk.
Yeah, that just means we have 20 minutes to catch up. It's good to see you again, Evandel.
He seems to be considering a formula for a moment before you see him squint, though not clearly, at the board, and he slowly turns his head. He looks over and says, My, this is a surprise. Professor... Alright, he doesn't want to go in the square I thought he would be cool in, so he's gonna... Alright, we're just gonna, it's fine. There we go.
It sort of dances around.
Professor Lair.
He just stumbles and gets there.
I'm a little, distracted between classes. I did not expect to see you here, especially not after you told me you were going to be sending me a statue from the heart of the Underdark.
I did not expect to be here, but circumstances led me here, and it is good to be back, at least for a small bit of time. How has the statue been?
I will tell you about that, but first, please, you seem to have brought me some guests.
These are two of my companions. Tatsia appears to be the closest one to me, so this is Tatsia, and this is Leah.
Hello.
It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Evandel Yeldon, and I am an old friend of your Professor Laromendis.
You seem a bit, at least a little more friendly than the last.
I took them to meet Jerry.
You see his pallor shifts a little bit into the gray. He says, "Oh, well, that was a decision."
Another companion had some questions. I talked over you, Tatsuya. What were you saying?
He just said, indeed it was. He now holds one of our members hostage.
He'll manage to get out of there. He doesn't like company for very long.
Yes, I was going to share my surprise at him wanting anyone to stay.
I guess it was more of our member holding him hostage.
Again, something that is very unusual. Jerry is a man who does not feel he is beholden to anyone but himself, and his position within the university allows him to exercise that quite excessively. Even when I would find reason to speak with the man, he is able to avoid contact if he is not in the mood. You might have noticed that he moved his offices back up to the top of the tower.
I had hoped that it wouldn't be there, but
They had persuaded him to become more accessible for about 6 months, some 40 years ago.
it lasted 6 months.
Not if you ask him. But he convinced them it did. In any event, I'm sure you're not here to speak about Jerry. Right, the statue. Oh, Laromendis. How? How did you accomplish this?
The companion of mine who is speaking with Jerry presently is in possession of a smart piece of magic that allows him to restore pieces of artwork to their original state. So when we came across the statue in a damaged way, he was able to restore it, and the people who had it were not strongly attached, and so let us set it here for the safekeeping.
Well, I am absolutely certain that the Dean of Transmutation will want to speak to your friend, because I myself want to know how this spell decides what is the true form of the art.
Unfortunately, it is a magical item that was given to him by someone who is no longer on this plane, and so I don't think that he has a solid answer, and the only one who would have an answer is beyond our grasp.
A most unfortunate turn of events. Well, then I would certainly not let the Dean of Transmutation know that you have no information to give him, nor a reason to waste his time.
There seems to be a lot of people that are named Dean. Common name for mages?
You are a delight. Leah, was it?
Yes.
Are you aspiring to attend our wonderful academy?
No, I'm not sure if there's much I can do here.
Pity. I could interest you in the ability to conjure your dreams.
I think I can already manage some of that.
Well, if you change your mind, I would love to give you a recommendation to our school. To answer your question, their name isn't Dean, it is a title. It indicates that they are the highest ranking authority on that school of magic in the school. In the college, that is to say. Which is really just a fancy word to say a collection of schools.
I see.
So the Dean of Transmutation would be the highest ranked professor, most knowledgeable or longest tenured professor of the School of Transmutation, and the person to whom we go when we have very important, dire, or complicated questions about the magic of transmutation. So too for abjuration or divination, all of the Asians, if you will.
Is there a head of deans?
There is the Dean of the University, a type of overbearing decision maker. Overbearing's the wrong word, forgive me. More of an overseer. They trust the deans of the individual colleges to run their schools as they see fit. But when questions, say, of funding comes up, how the funds shall be divided for resources for the individual schools, that decision goes to them, and we, or the deans rather, present their cases for why such funding should be divided in such ways.
I see.
Is that the one we met when we came here?
He looks to Laromendis, not certain how to answer.
It was Laromendis I was looking at too.
We met the Dean of the School of Abjuration, who is just in charge of the School of Abjuration.
Ah, that makes sense. Laromendis was a professor within the School of Abjuration, so that would have been his boss back then.
Still not sure how she found out that I was coming. She didn't say.
Didn't you send?
Evandal sort of
Not
just
to her.
blinks at you a moment. Says, all of the deans are informed when we have important arrivals. It is a part of their job.
Were you informed?
I'm not a dean. No one told
never
me Professor
considered himself.
Laromendis was coming to visit. And I admit I'm a bit miffed.
Laromendis is so rude.
We showed up this morning and then availed ourselves of the dormitories until very recently.
I see.
It was a long night.
Couldn't
was
be
a
bothered to
long
come
day.
see me before turning in. No, I should not be surprised.
I'd like to see you want to catch up with people after what we endured.
He had been giving Lara a sly smile as he feigned hurt, but now he is...
That is sort of like what actually happened. But anyway, I'm glad that we've had a bit of time to catch up, and I would like to speak more about the statue and just how things have been going here in my absence.
Brass tacks.
But I had another question for you, specifically as somebody in the College of Conjuration.
Well, I do hope that I can answer it then.
I am looking to acquire a few tuning forks.
Ah, planning a trip.
Yes, we are going into the Feywild,
Ah,
and would like for a way back easily, and possibly a way into the Feywild should we find ourselves in the a need of it.
and in need and away from a perpendicularity.
Yes.
I see. So what you're asking for, if I'm understanding you correctly, is a tuning fork for the material plane so that you can get back, and a tuning fork for the Feywild so that you can return, should you need to.
Yes. I have this. I take out my tuning fork. It's not attuned to anywhere as far as I know, and it's in the wrong. It's in the wrong key. I wonder, is it possible to maybe change that?
He steps forward and puts out a hand for it.
I hand it to him.
He looks it over and tings it against one of the marble walls and closes his eyes, holding it next to his ear. Ah, yes, I see. I can. Yes, I can retune this for you. His simple craft wouldn't be very expensive. We can add some materials, a couple focusing gems, perhaps, just to push up the cost a little bit. And where did you get it, perchance?
It was given to me by an old friend, a Mistral I was traveling with in Eppengard.
And so it has importance to you.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
I would say
That
so.
will certainly help. Yes, I think that if you give me a little bit of time, and of course, the proper funds, that I can retool this to make it exactly what you need.
Well, thank you.
I-
Would that be cheaper than just buying one?
I like to think that it would be more valuable in other ways. But yes, since some of the cost has already been put down, it would be slightly, he says, kind of weighing it gently in his hands, slightly cheaper.
Good.
But honestly, and he kind of leans in a little bit and makes long eye contact with you, and as he says, it is your connection to who gave it to you that I think will make it a very reliable focus.
Interesting. I've heard of, I know of magic that it requires connections to people. Scrying, for example, dream.
If you can cast magic, then I should hope that you have done a good deal of studying on the sympathies.
I haven't, but I do know these spells, yes.
Well, we call them sympathies. They're these connections that border on the ephemeral, the ethereal. They're the ties between people, between places, inexorable, yet so very fragile when you look at them.
Ah, I see. You see, I haven't done much study on magic, I just kind of do it.
And so this is a somewhat edge form of sympathetic magic that you will be performing when you use this tuning fork, properly modified, to control your tunnel, to tell it where to take you. It is using the sympathetic magic that you have imbued it with from this plane to connect you back home.
That's cool.
Indeed. I suppose, and he kind of turns somewhat back toward Laromendis, he says that it would be too much to expect that you've got some material already from the Feywild that we could use for that fork. We, of course, have plenty of forks that we could simply sell you, but I like to make them personal.
Unfortunately, it has been too long since I've been back, so I don't have anything.
Understandable, he says, waving a hand in the air. If you would allow me, Miss Leah, to keep this fork and modify it for you, I will quote you the total cost when it is ready and be able to give you both forks.
Tristan, would Leah have something from the Feywild, considering her patron? I don't know where the armor is made, for example.
I see. We're usually pretty specific about your interactions. I don't believe he has given you anything, and the armor... The armor doesn't have anything, necessarily metal, in abundance about it.
True.
Like, it's
So I
got,
guess if Lorelai was still around here, I would probably just borrow one of her swords.
Give me your sword, I'm gonna make a tuning fork out of it.
Second thought, I don't think the sprite will be very happy about that.
That is, a fair assessment of the situation. But, nonetheless, a funny prospect. I like the way you're thinking. No, so he has pretty specifically not given you anything physical, from himself. He was given a body by your ritual. He made the pact with you, and granted you your magic, and then he returned to the Feywild, and you have Leah by his power, but you don't have anything physical, any items that he's given you.
You mean Lorelai?
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Leah.
Oh, wow, that's
You
weird.
have yourself.
Sorry about that. Yes, Lorelai. You have Lorelai by his power.
They both start with L's.
I think it's the second time I've done it, too. I think I remember listening to a recording from a few sessions back, and I meant to say Lorelai, but I said Leah.
Oh, in that case I probably didn't notice.
It's
Unless
not
I
the
did, and I
first
just
time, and
forgot.
I'm getting the feeling it's not going to be the last time it happens. In any event, so, no, while it is a nice thought, you have a very particular relationship with him right now, and that has not included any physical items.
Okay.
Just because I feel like if you did have one, it would have a lot of meaning to it, and we would have roleplayed that.
True. And I also assume some of those mystery gifts aren't from Feywild either. But if they are, Leah probably doesn't know.
Yeah, she definitely, wouldn't... I don't think she'd have assumed that they are.
No.
So, as he says, they have forks in abundance that they can sell. And so he can make one. But Evandal does seem a bit disappointed that he doesn't get to make a nice, personalized one for you. I should be able to have the work done. He looks at the fork, weighs it, says, I'm not sure I have enough time to reforge this before my next class, but after that class, which should put it... early evening.
We are going into the Feywild at dusk, so...
Then I will begin the work now so that it can definitely be done by then after my class.
Thank you.
That would be most appreciative.
Is there anything I can do for you, Mr. Tatsuya?
No, just the fact that you are helping us get this done as quickly as you can is more than enough.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that you have decided to seek my services, and I shall, of course, endeavor to accommodate you in every way I can. If there is anything you end up needing that you have not thought of now, please just hurry yourselves back here. I will have a class starting, in about an hour and a half, but that will only last about an hour on its own. At that point, I should be able to perform whatever is left of the work, and I can bring you the forks at the amphitheater square?
I think that's the easiest place to find us, yes.
That is where you will need to go if you're going to transfer, as he waves to you, saying, don't worry, I'm not explaining it to you, Professor. For the benefit of your friends.
Laromendis nods.
If you wish to transfer to the Feywild.
What is your class about?
Oh, he gestures to the board. He says, I'm teaching, intermediate level conjuration. I am breaking down the formulae of some earlier level spells, so that I can use that as a starting point to explain the more complex forms of the higher level spells.
I see.
This will allow people to conjure greater items and even creatures from other planes. Elementals in some cases, dangerous magic, so it is very important to understand the fundamentals and how they play into this more advanced magic.
So more than just illusions.
Oh, yes, an entirely different school of magic. Conjuration, you are physically creating a true item or creature, or summoning it from elsewhere, if only temporarily. Illusion is not to disparage the school, but comparably harmless.
I guess.
I could use an illusion spell to create the image of a feral beast that would probably frighten you half to death, but it could never lay a claw on you or cause you physical injury of its own volition. This, of course, excludes perhaps your heart stopping a fright. That would be a physical injury, but it is not directly caused by the image. It is your body's reaction to experiencing the image. Conjuration, I could physically summon the beast here to kill you. Or me. And that is why it is dangerous and must be taught precisely. I cannot allow my students to go out into the world capable of harming themselves or others. As a master of abjuration yourself, I'm sure you understand and could better explain this to your friend if I have left anything unsaid, Professor Laromendis.
I think your discussion of the differences very succinct for the time that we are distracting you from.
He beams. He says, "Right! The fork! Please, excuse me. I would like to get some of the preliminary work done before my class. It was wonderful to meet the two of you, and it has been a joy to see you again, Professor Laromendis. Especially, I didn't realize you were coming back to the school long term. We have much to catch up on. Please, excuse me, I shall return. I will see you later at the amphitheater square." And he
Laromendis holds up a hand as he turns away and gets very distracted at that. I didn't realize you were coming back long term. Laromendis holding up a hand. That's no.
He's gone.
Evandel is gone, and it's just that's going to be an awkward discussion.
A lot of people would really like to have you here.
That's because of the people that I have been bringing you to are people that I am quite fond of.
It's Jerry. What?
Right.
Most of the people that I brought you to are quite fond of me.
Hang on, let me introduce you to all the people who hate me.
If we come out of this journey of ours whole and alive, maybe you should consider it.
I do think that the things that I have... I assume that we have left the room.
Yes, you may go wherever you please. I do believe we've completed all of the to-dos, so now you may simply roleplay.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that we're not standing in the classroom with Evandel.
Yeah.
Having this conversation. But I do think that given everything that I have seen and learned over the time that I have been traveling with all of you, my experiences would be beneficial to more time spent teaching here. It is also very nice to be back. Unfortunately, there are other pressing matters to which we must attend, and so I cannot stay for long.
True.
Indeed.
I tried to teleport you all outside. I'm just doing it analog because it just kept dropping the pieces mid-scroll. I was like, okay, fine. We're not teleporting. But just get to show off this badass map that Derek and I made.
There you go.
What did you take the long way around?
I did, yeah. I went to the far end instead of the middle.
This is what you zoom in from the left. I'm like, what? Where did you come from?
I don't know where you guys went. Oh, there. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I saw you weren't moving, so I teleported you.
I was about to teleport myself. So,
okay.
But yeah, you. So I ended up teleporting 2 squares instead of the entire way, but stop. Yeah.
No, it was fun. All right.
I forgot to ask about a thing for Hell, didn't I?
I have written down that you were going to get forks. Did I miss something?
I forgot to ask him if they had one for Hell.
Oh, yes. I was waiting to see if you would ask him for other ones. I momentarily considered having him say, do you need anywhere else? But figured let you break that iceberg.
Yeah, I just forgot.
Well, he's really happy you're staying here long term, and luckily that means you'll have plenty of time to ask him.
Do you have one for? And he's like, when we had that argument ages ago, and I said go to hell, I did not mean.
Feel free to avail yourself. Go to hell. Feel free to avail yourself of my fork. Fork yourself.
Fork yourself to hell.
Go fork yourself straight to hell. Please. He seems like the kind of person who would actually say please at the end of a request like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, you gotta be polite.
Go fork yourself if you may.
I would be surprised if we could get a fork for hell without, like, special dispensation from someone.
You can add that to the list of insults only nerds understand.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as we're out and start heading out of different ways, Leah would check one of the road maps or something, or try to see if she can find an information stand, or maybe just Dean we talked to in the beginning.
I mean, you're basically walking next to an information stand about the university.
True. Yes. So
What are you doing? I'm looking for a sign to tell me where to go. Oh, okay. I guess you don't want my directions. No, I wanted something that would talk less when I asked it where I needed to go.
Laromendis casts Minor Illusion. It says okay with a period.
No, okay, yeah, we'll see what's asked Laromendis then, if, because he clearly got the rope and such from her, so Leah would think how to find her, where would she go to find her?
To find Amara.
Yeah.
I would guess that she's in her office. We could go there if you want. I was going to speak with her. Anyway, there were things that we didn't get to cover yesterday or this morning that I think she would like to discuss.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if this is something we could cover auto character or auto session, so it won't take time during the session. So I'm just going to give you what Leah is thinking.
Alright.
Because it's clear that she can do magic, but she doesn't understand magic.
Yep.
So she would be curious if it's possible that she could guest and roll for certain lessons to just understand how the schools work and how magic works. Yes. She got interested with the conversations we had. I'm clearly way under my league. I can do this advanced magic, but I have no idea what I'm actually doing. So
you're just tugging on a power source that was granted to you and being do the thing, and the power source is okay.
And all the wizards are like,
how'd you do that? And you're ah.
Thing, and then suddenly, thing.
I said the thing. I said the thing. I moved my arms around, and it happened.
Yeah. Was that Sylvan you were speaking? No. Was it Elven you were speaking? No. What was it? I don't know. Was it a language? It's just some noises I make and a spell happens.
How do you know what noises to make? Because this spell uses those noises.
She actually do understand the language, what language she's using though, because that was given to her by Zephyr, unfortunately.
That, but you mostly don't use that anymore.
Well, yeah, she shifted to something else when she got Centaurimel.
Yeah.
You haven't really covered that much.
Well, we haven't talked about it, but I didn't think that your language would change. Are you saying that it should?
I don't know, maybe.
We should talk about it. That's an
Infernal
interesting
is
thing.
ripped from her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise she would still use Infernal whenever she casts magic.
Yeah. Fascinating. We should have a discussion.
Knowing Sylvan would be useful for the coming sessions. Since it's only Laromendis who knows it.
But man, remember that one time when it was really important that you did?
I was very happy. Because Sylvan is one that I take very frequently as an elf, and it does not come up often, so it is always very nice when it can. So I was glad for that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, they're definitely open to that because there's a lot of prestige in being able to say that you graduated from this place, and you can't graduate on audited courses. So they would let you do that.
Laromendis had asked if that's what you were doing in the dream. He didn't recognize you in his class.
It's true. You had asked,
that's true.
you're auditing this class?
Yeah. But the more reason why Leah would ask for it, because then she would know that it's a possibility.
I think Laromendis would be very surprised that you knew that. He's like, so where do I go to audit a course? And he's like,
What?
what?
Yeah, I guess in that case, I guess that's what she would ask, and not where her is. She would just straight up ask that.
Boom,
Considering she knows what auditing a class would mean.
Laromendis describes a bit of the procedure for it, and there's like a little bit of paperwork, but it's all simple and all of that. Occasionally, you do get people that just sneak into a lecture hall and just sit there, and it's usually fine. But
yeah, because that's what that was the plan. That was the backup plan. That literally was the backup plan. I had thought of that.
Classes are so tough, they don't usually have to worry about people trying to take them illicitly.
Professors are usually happy that there's more people there.
The problem with sneaking into a class is that Leah would have no idea what is taught where, so she would just find a room that is in session and sneak in, and then she would probably accidentally get into something way too tough and just sit there like a question mark.
It's like 9th level necromancy spells. That doesn't seem relevant.
Oh, you do not want a warlock in those classes, I tell you. She could very quickly, luckily though, Leah doesn't actually have any necromancy class spells, but she could have. There's so many warlocks that can just peck.
Oof.
So saying that if a warlock would accidentally end up in those classes and just have those spells, they could very easily outclass a lot of people there.
Yeah, that would turn some heads.
We're supposed to not just conjure a zombie at this level? Oops.
Oops. Did I just accidentally a 5th level spell?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were supposed to raise 5 deads today.
Alright.
Sorry, boys. Guess go back to the grave with you. Another time.
Talk to you guys later. Alright, so if there's nothing else pressing roleplay or the story-wise, then I will end the stream.
I'm good.
Okay, then I'm going to end the stream. Thank you everybody for joining. Got started a little late, went a little long, a lot long. Was a lot of fun though. I'm really glad we did it. Thank you to the people who stayed. Thank you to the people who watched. And love you all. See you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.